Hey there guys, welcome to 1914.
Brianna Pritsanson, and I'll be taking you on a quick journey.
So to understand why World War I happens, you have to go back in time to the year 1914. In 1914, you have Archduke Ferdinand murdered in Bosnia. The Bosnian people thought that by killing the Archduke that this would be their ticket to freedom and be no longer part of the Austro-Hungary Empire. But what they failed to realize was that the Bosnian people were actually starting one of the biggest wars in history. After Archduke Ferdinand was killed, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, their neighboring country, for being part of the plot of killing Archduke Ferdinand of the Austria-Hungary Empire, which led to the division of countries, the Triple Alliance, whose country consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. On the opposing side, the Triple Entity, France, Russia, and Britain. So with the war breaking out, there indeed needs to be some soldiers out in the battlefield. Countries started propaganda to have more people volunteer for war, ultimately having up to 10,000 men signing up in just one day. With so many soldiers eventually having to return home after war, we see that there were consequences for having so many soldiers having to either go back home and readjusting to civilian life or having families dealing with the loss of a loved one from war. One of the more bigger consequences that I specifically wanted to point out was the problems that soldiers face that so many of us civilians either look past or just don't realize how serious the problem can be. I'm talking about PTSD. In the comic that I read this semester, the main character, Abe, suffers from PTSD and tries to commit suicide after a longtime friend from the Marines dies in the war. As I was reading my comic, The White Donkey, it became more clear how so many family members just don't know how to deal with a loved one having PTSD. They don't know how to help them. In my book, Abe was always locked in his room, drinking and never seeing the light of day, until ultimately he leaves the house and tries to commit suicide alongside his friend's grave, only to realize that he in fact does need help and needs support. Fortunately, he was one of the lucky ones, because Abe actually didn't commit suicide. The statistic, on the other hand, of the average Vietnam War veterans that commit suicide is 8,000 every year. But even if soldiers don't commit suicide, depression is also a big factor in this role. At least 20% of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans have PTSD and or depression, and 50% of those with PTSD do not seek treatment. So we ask ourselves, how can we as civilians be helpful to these soldiers that have fought for either our own country or our neighboring country? How can we lend a hand? And my answer to you is to reach out to your loved one and ask them how you can be of assistance. And even if they are close-hearted and don't say anything to you, bring help around and be supportive as can be. There are also plenty of books out there that can be read on how to cope with a loved one that has PTSD. Because as civilians, we at least owe that to our fellow soldiers. They gave us freedom, so let us give them back the mentality of freedom that they deserve as well. Thanks for tuning into my video. I hope it gave you an inside look as to why World War I broke out and the consequences of having soldiers fight for a war, no matter which war it might be. Thank you.